Hi guys, welcome back. Yet another episode, and we've got a guest that we've been wanting to get on for quite a while, but because of TikTok just being TikTok, we've had to kind of navigate our way around it. So, welcome, Dominic.
Nice
Honestly,
to be here.
I appreciate you coming down. So, if you guys don't know, Dominic has written a book called The Drug User's Bible, right? And which he has kindly brought
I
for us. Yeah,
brought for you. Do
yeah.
you want
If
it
you
now?
if you want to take it
Yeah.
out, please do. I mean, it's basically just a little recap. Dominic went on a pilgrimage around the world to how many different 182 different. Wow,
I
Jesus.
self-administered 182 different drugs, which is basically every recreational drug that's in popular use. I visited, I think it was 51 countries, and some were duds in that I didn't manage to get any drugs or see anything that was drug related, but vast majority of them I obviously did, and I sampled the drugs in the authentic setting where it was possible.
So, when you actually, and I'm going to get back into the context of the book. Actually, let's do this. Let's prop it up like that. Show everyone the book. There you go.
That's actually a proof copy. Do you know what a
is it?
proof copy is?
What is a
Show it
proof?
to the camera.
There you go, guys.
A proof copy is when you write a book and send it off and it gets printed, you get a copy back to go through it and make notes and make changes,
Wow.
or adjust or spot any typos or particular bits that you might want to reword.
So this is the real deal then?
That's the real
Wow.
deal, and I
This
thought
is-
it'd be nice for you to have
This is
that.
so
yeah,
cool.
definitely. So how did you where did this, let's go a bit into your background firstly, how did you find it? Because obviously for a lot of people this might be a strange thing to maybe do, test 182 drugs. What was the thing that led you down this pathway?
Basically, what led me down the pathway was that I was getting on a bit, and I'd finished working really, and wondering what to do with my life. And I came across some videos on YouTube, and in particular by a guy called Terence McKenna. And in one of them, he was talking about something called ayahuasca, which is a brew that's made in the Amazon. The shamans brew this thing together and they drink it, and it provides a 4 or 5 hour visionary experience, and it's relatively safe. And I just thought, well, that would be great. I quite fancy the idea of doing that. So I started to plan that, and I booked a trip to the Amazon to do it. And as it got closer, I was starting to worry, thinking, I've not really got much experience with drugs and psychedelics. Maybe I should actually not go there as a psychedelic virgin. So I started researching what can I get a hold of in this country, in the UK, and try, so that at least I got some idea what is likely to happen. And whilst I was doing that, I came across forums, and one forum in particular, which is now defunct because it's illegal in this country. It wasn't then. And I noticed that people were dying, disappearing off the forum, and then word would suddenly get back that, oh, he or she had died of an overdose of this drug. And I was thinking, well, how does that actually happen? How do people manage to overdose? And it's not difficult to work out. There's only a finite number of sort of routes to that sort of end, and it usually begins and ends with lack of knowledge or information, not knowing what the dose is, or not having a safety protocol, or etc., etc. And I sort of scouted around and realised there's not really much out there. There's a few internet sites and that help, but particularly with the research chemicals, which were freely available in the UK at the time, very little. And that's when I had the idea of a spreadsheet. I thought, well, I'll record what I'm doing, I'm going to try a few psychedelics at least, and I record the dose and how long does it last, and what are the do-nots, and what am I going to feel like tomorrow morning, and other information, and I'll publish the Excel spreadsheet for others to benefit from, so perhaps they don't die. And when I got back from Peru, I sort of realised that I had the capability and hopefully the money to actually do all the popular drugs, all the recreational drugs that were used at least in the UK, and actually write something properly, a book. And that's where it started. I had no idea at the time that this was going to last for 12 years. And I had no idea that it would be such a ride with tremendous highs and terrible lows.
Would you say this in general was like a midlife crisis, or like kind of, because what you said at the start, it was like
you could argue. I mean, my wife, she says that, she's always said, when's your midlife crisis going to end? And she still says it. So you could argue, but I mean, really, I was getting older. I was in my early 50s, and I really didn't need to work anymore. And what was I going to do? What was I actually interested in doing? So there was this sort of gap, and I liked the idea of travel.
Yeah.
And I liked, this is going to sound pretty bad. I liked the idea of trying new experiences, and drugs are obviously new experiences. So I don't think I never saw it as a crisis. I saw it as an adventure, something that was worthwhile, and the end product from which would actually make a difference to an awful lot of people.
Yeah.
And once I started, it was it's difficult not to reach a conclusion. I always found it. I wanted to finish it. And you start looking at how I've done 20, 30 drugs, and I've done all that. I can't stop now, because at the start that's the sort of extent I visualised. I thought, well, how many drugs are there? There can't be that many. Little did I know. And it turned out to be 12 years. I mean, one of the delays was I made sure that I was clean with each drug experience. So I had to wait 2 or 3 weeks between different drug experiences to make sure that I was actually reporting on that drug and that drug alone, rather than that drug with yesterday's heroin in my system. So there was sort of mandatory constraints in terms of how fast I could actually write this book and undertake the project. But once I started doing it, I was confident that I could do a good job. I could finish it, and it didn't really worry me that it was going to take a long time.
Did you ever obviously with these situations, it would have been the first time you ever did it. Obviously your sort of journey, your mission was to document how you could do these safely. So was there ever a time where you maybe came close to death or came close to overdosing on something?
There were a few occasions, yeah, and there were a few in which I thought I'd really done it this time. Because one of the problems was that if I was going to actually report on write a drug and take it and experience it, having a trivial amount wasn't really going to cut the mustard. I mean, it would be like trying to explain what alcohol feels like on half a pint. You know what I mean? You've got to actually have a solid dose to actually do it properly. And I think somebody said in the early days, I think the analogy, they said, well, if you don't take all these drugs and take a solid dose, a good dose, then it would be like taking sex advice from a nun. So I had to sort of do it and do it properly, and because of that, there were a few occasions on which I had way too much. And there was some in which I just never saw it coming. I never saw what actually transpired or imagined it was going to be like it was. So I think there's a combination of those two things, the sort of shock of a few drugs and the actual fact that I had way too much of some drugs. Some of the common ones, I mean, I had too much heroin because I there was very little on what's the dose, you know, and I read on a site called Erowid, this post was talking about, well, people have these wafer thin lines and they can keep having them and go on all night and have a great time. Didn't actually say how much. So I thought, well, all right, well, I think it was probably 100 milligrams or something like that I'd set aside. And one thing I always did was I'd which was just as well with some of the drugs, this is the maximum amount I am going to actually take, and I'll throw the rest away. Because there are certain drugs, and crystal meth is one of them, where you're not going to stop. You know, no matter how much you've got, you were going to carry on taking it. Now, heroin wasn't like that. Heroin was, I would start taking and snorting the lines. And I didn't really know what to expect. I was sort of expecting a sort of cocaine or stimulant, like I'm going to get high. And it's more of a comfort bubble and bliss, and I like being high, and this is why it's popular, I guess, with people who've got a lot of life problems, because it just makes the problems go away. And you know, I wasn't miserable, so for me it was, you know, it's more, I must not have taken enough. And after I'd taken a certain amount, I suddenly started feeling like seasick and queasy, and I had to sort of go to bed. Got in bed. I was in a hotel, and I went oh God, this is terrible. And then I sort of tossing and turning, and I suddenly needed to vomit. And so I'm starting to vomit at this point, and then I'm sort of panicking a little bit, thinking, what the hell's going on? So I'm sort of searching in this real bad state of nausea and seasickness. Vomiting is a sign of really top quality heroin. You know, I had no idea. And you know, that's the sort of reason why I had to go through and take the drugs, because I'd never discovered that, and it would never be recorded in something like the drug user's Bible.
Well, some say you've got balls doing that, because, you know, realistically, the as you know happened there, when you don't know what it's going to do to you, it could lead you down a path, and obviously you could panic, which could make it worse, and then obviously lead you down a really bad route. But this is one thing I really wanted to ask you, because obviously with this journey you will have done a lot of psychedelics, right? And you know, if there's one thing that's common about psychedelics and what strays people away from psychedelics is the horror stories that people hear, like, oh, I had this guy had this really bad trip, went crazy and jumped off a bridge, right? So I remember from, you know, obviously doing my research, you mentioning that there were actually some ways, that some tricks that you could stop a bad trip.
Yeah. A bad trip is usually, you know, your mindset going into the experiences is in the wrong place. You're not happy, you're depressed, you've got something on your mind, and it's very easy to sort of focus on that and get in a sort of loop, not being able to get out of it. And there are a few things that can be done, and one is, I mean, the first thing is to understand and remember that you are on a drug experience. You know, I'm under the influence of a drug. And if you can sort of keep that in mind, that is a trigger for you to actually take action to do something. And basically, doing something is some method of sort of snapping you out of the sort of looping process that's going on in your mind that you're finding uncomfortable. I mean, Terence McKenna says, sing a song or a nursery rhyme or something, I mean, for me it's have music or have something that I can put on YouTube or just go out. The worst possible thing you can do is just sit there and carry on having the experience, because you can have a horrible time. But you do have control, and if you can remember that I'm actually on a trip, then you can actually just do something, get up, put yourself in a different situation, and you'll find your mind will move on into a more pleasant realm.
Okay.
It's quite common with obviously you've tried like every recreational drug. It's quite common that people get addicted to drugs. What stopped you from getting addicted and maybe like going down that path, that especially with heroin, for example?
I think in understanding that addiction is a thing, and a lot of the drugs are, there's certain drugs that aren't really addictive. Psychedelics, a lot of psychedelics, addict. I mean, LSD is a prime example of a drug that is very difficult to get addicted to, on the basis that if you have it on one day and you have it the following day, you're going to need twice as much to have the same effect, and then 4 times as much to have the same effect. So certain drugs don't lend themselves to addiction. Obviously, a lot of drugs do. And what I did was, the first of all is make sure I don't fall into an uncontrollable binge. And I mentioned it, methamphetamine. If you have crystal meth, then you are going to consume what you've got. And if you have 2-3 massive amount of it, you're not going to stop. And by the time you've come out the other end, if it's a lot, you're going to have a problem, because you're going to be so depressed in the subsequent days because it'll suck dopamine and serotonin out of your brain, and you're gonna need something to actually get you by. Your depression will be awful, and so people have it again to actually resolve the immediate feeling of terrible depression. But what apart from just having available what I was prepared to take and making sure that I didn't have an infinite supply to hand, would be to actually, I'm going to have these drug experiences, and I would leave a gap between drugs of the same type. So if I was actually testing a stimulant on week 1 on a Friday, and I wanted to have an experience next week, it wouldn't be a stimulant. I would use a psychedelic or a cannabinoid, and then the week after I'd use a different class of drug, a dissociative. So by the time I came back to a stimulant, it was weeks past the original stimulant, so there was less tendency to have a physical addiction to it. The problem is always that people get sort of a sort of psychological dependence and addiction to escaping reality. Which I don't have a solution to that other than just be careful what drugs you're using to escape reality, and I'm including alcohol as a drug. I mean, a lot of people have alcohol all the time or every weekend. For the same people use heroin, and alcohol is one of the strongest and most toxic and addictive of drugs. It's just another drug. For me, that was starting the drug book, the Drug Users Bible, was a positive in terms of alcohol consumption. Because I used to drink every weekend like most people. Once I started experimenting with different types of drugs, I more and more began to see alcohol as just another drug to be treated with respect and care, and only consume it every now and again, so that I don't get addictive or comfortable with it. And apart from that, I just can't stand the hangover the next day. It's absolutely awful.
So out of all the drugs you've done, that's the hangover is just
the alcoholic hangover is the worst hangover of all the drugs.
Yeah, you reckon?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of drugs are really unpleasant in terms of sort of depression. I mean, ecstasy is a good example, isn't it? You're likely to be, if you have a high dose of ecstasy, you're going to be depressed for a few days afterwards at least. But you're not in pain. Cocaine again, you're going to be drained and wanting some more and a bit down, but you're not going to be in pain and you're not going to be vomiting. Whereas alcohol, you're going to be suffering big time the next day if you have a significant dose.
And people combine the both.
Sorry?
Alcohol and cocaine, or
that's one of the
ecstasy.
worst things you can do, because you mix them together and it makes some other molecule which is really toxic. So if you're out there and you use cocaine, try not to drink with it, because it's not a good idea at all.
Yeah, I think a lot of the population in the UK needs to hear that. To be fair, I mean, it's I feel like that's quite a pretty common.
It's really common,
Yeah.
incredible. And people, I mean, if you go to a rehab centre, the number of people who are addicted to cocaine and to alcohol is pretty significant.
Yeah, I feel like there's a very big culture of it, especially in the UK. But apart from, you must have done nitrous oxide, so NOS, right?
Yeah.
So what is your kind of opinion on that? Because that is a very popular drug. I feel like that's, one of the drugs that people start off with, really. I mean, it's very easy to obtain. It's not necessarily illegal, even though it's been like tightened up on very recently. So what is kind of like your viewpoint on the popularity of that and how harmful it is?
I've never understood it, to be honest. It's just so fast. Wham bam, thank you, ma'am. Bang. It's a dissociative, and every time I tried it, I was really what comes next. And I know it's nice in a way to have this sort of reset, but I've never really got much sort of pleasure from it, compared to other dissociatives. So,
what would be your number one favourite then?
Drug or dissociative? Drug. Depends on what I want it for. It's a hard question to answer. If I'm looking for deep knowledge and wisdom and contemplate, I'd have had a psychedelic. I'd probably have LSD, and I say LSD because although I enjoyed ayahuasca, really really nice. LSD is more measurable, and I can derive different types of experience from it, from a sort of low-level recreation sort of dose to a more sort of psychedelic ride, and I can sort of measure it. I know what I'm getting from a particular precise measurement. That's very difficult to do on a lot of psychedelics, on shrooms. So if that's what I'm looking for, I will go for LSD. If it's to have a high and a stimulus and chemsex, if you like, I wouldn't have methamphetamine for the reasons I've just outlined, because it's way too difficult to stop. I like methadone, which is 4-MMC, but again, it's one of those that's very easy to get addicted to. Dissociative, I would probably go for something called ephenidine, which is like ketamine, which is the most famous dissociative. But ketamine, two problems. One, it doesn't last very long, and two, it causes serious problems for bladder, ketamine bladder, which isn't actually sort of media scare story or myth. It's true. So if you take ketamine, just take it easy. Ephenidine is not known to cause that, and it's an oral sort of dissociative, and it lasts longer. So I'm quite partial to, or was when it was available, to ephenidine. I like to relax. I like cannabis, and what else is there? Psychedelics, stimulants. I don't like opioids. I've never been a fan of them. I had to try them all, even though I was never sort of looking forward to them. Dissociatives, cannabinoids, and there's a class called nootropics, which have you ever seen Limitless, the film?
Yeah.
Nootropics are reported to improve cognitive performance, as in Limitless, and I tracked down as many nootropics as I could, because I quite like the idea of being like the guy on Limitless, and they tend not to work. They're like sort of stimulants, really. Stimulants can provide focus, and they're a bit like that. The only one that really worked for me was a plant called the intellect tree, and it's I think it comes from northern India, and it's seeds, I ate those, and it's very difficult as my cognitive performance. Am I more capable intellectually than I was before I ate? Now that's a difficult thing to measure, isn't it? But I felt sharper. I felt like I could remember more things, and I felt like I was retaining information in a sort of in a more of functionally, and I thought it was a really I thought it was working at the time. And then I read that in India they were having a real problem with it because students were using it prior to exams. So they were trying to ban this. I think it was Nepal. It might have been India, where they were trying to ban it, and I don't think they did in the end. But that was the only nootropic that I felt might have had a sort of amount of work to some degree in that case.
Have you heard of modafinil?
Yeah, I've heard of that. That was,
that?
in fact, I had it, and again, it's a bit of a stimulant that has provided you sort of feel a bit of clarity. I presume you've had that, which is right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like the student thing that came up. I related to that with modafinil.
Yeah, it feels like there's a clarity, doesn't it? And it feels like you can focus. But whether that is actually the case in terms of performance, I don't know.
I reckon it's a myth, you know.
I don't think it was because myself and my brother's grades flew up after taking it.
Really?
Like they locked us in seriously when we both struggled to concentrate quite a lot in school.
We don't condone this, by the way.
No, we absolutely don't condone this.
But
what a terrible person. What a terrible man.
I think my brother's A-level grades went from like DDF to A*, B in like 6 months of taking it.
Okay, well that's interesting.
But I think it's just something that it's like a concept, like you say, a stimulant.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more like a stimulant that is just not as recreationally obvious.
Yeah, I found myself wanting to work, like wanting to ask for homework
focus
and stuff, which was weird.
Yeah, you haven't got ADHD, have you?
I do.
Yeah. Right.
So that's why
probably.
it helped.
Yeah. That might be part of the reason.
Both of us ADHD to
it's the easily distracted podcast. So.
Oh right, okay.
Both of us have it.
So you're really out of your tree on medicinal.
Yeah, pretty much.
There's only me not on drugs round here. Only me. I'm the sober one.
No, I think the only time I ever took medicinal was during my dissertation. I took it once.
Didn't really have an effect.
It did help me out a little bit, but not much more than I would normally be if I just sat there and just was like.
You only had a half.
I was pretty scared to take it. I was
Same.
like, I think we shouldn't talk about
interesting conversation about ADHD and drugs. Do you think there's a massive link between people with ADHD and using recreational drugs?
Well, there's Ritalin and what's the Adderall are used to treat ADHD, and they're amphetamines. It's basically speed, sort of weaker speed. And obviously it works because they're provided by the NHS even. I think do people with ADHD tend to use more drugs? Difficult to say. I mean, there's a barrier broken there in the fact that if you're prescribed a drug, speed, amphetamine, then you sort of straight away realise that this is an illegal drug. It's actually speed, really. So everything I've been told growing up is clearly not actually correct. And so am I therefore more likely to take other drugs? I wouldn't necessarily say so. I think most people, most kids these days who are growing up and in the teens and older sort of realise as soon as they see people encounter cannabis, they realise that they're being told lies because it's patently obvious that that's less addictive and less damaging than alcohol, which is available in every street corner.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, I'm of the opinion I think cannabis is as bad as alcohol for different reasons, right? But realistically, I mean, obviously I can openly say I've smoked marijuana a couple of times, quite a few times actually in my life. And to be honest with you, whilst I haven't been, full blown addict, I've recreationally done it, but I can see what kind of long term effects it can have on someone. I know someone who obviously is I'd say addicted to marijuana, and I've seen that person kind of deteriorate mentally over the course that he has been a full-blown addict. So I don't know, what are your kind of stances on marijuana, and how openly accepted it is, and how apparently it's not harmful to you whatsoever?
Well, I wouldn't say it's not harmful. I mean, it's all relative, isn't it? I mean, I've got kids. Would I rather my kids regularly drink alcohol or smoke weed? Have weed every day of the week, because you can see all around you in every major city, alcoholics, people dying, being addicted, behaving like dicks on the street, violence, car crash, all there to see throughout Western culture. Is cannabis completely clean? Probably not, but it doesn't cause that sort of mayhem at all. I think you look at the cannabis cultures, you don't have problems like that. So it's a relative. There's a whole spectrum there of harm, and the medical bodies, the medical parties, the medical practitioners, they've actually studied the relative harm of drugs and created tables. Alcohol is always at the top, with heroin and crystal meth always at the top. Down at the bottom is always cannabis. So it's not just the subjective opinion of somebody like me. There's actually been medical serious studies on it that have come to the same conclusion.
Okay, well, there's my opinion of it debunked, guys. So fair enough.
It's opinion.
No,
so
fair, no. I obviously I'm always understanding and accepting of facts, like pure facts. So obviously that is pure facts.
There's in the Drug Users Bible, in the last section, it's a sort of general worldscape, it's called, and in there I've republished a couple of the tables that have been created by eminent medical practitioners to actually show this and quantify it. So anyone who's interested, you can either buy the book or download the free copy.
That's another question I wanted to ask you. Obviously, this is meant to be for harm reduction.
Yes.
Right. But some people, obviously, there'll be people who are like way more closed-minded about drugs and obviously experimenting with drugs and whatnot. That'll say, well, this is technically promoting the use of drugs. So what would you say to people who have that kind of mentality towards this?
Open your eyes and have a look around you. Have a look at how many people are addicted to alcohol or are dying of alcohol. Have a look at how many people are addicted to drugs and are dying of overdose. It's just the war on drugs doesn't work. Prohibition has never worked, and it's never going to work. In terms of the specific book, if you're actually searching the internet for the Drug Users Bible, de facto you are looking for drugs. You are not just going to random. I think you are looking for it to actually understand about drugs, and therefore you are interested in drugs, or if you're not already taking them, you are looking for them. And given that 99% of drugs are less harmful than alcohol, they say, well, it's a menu of drugs. Well, if the actual item on the menu that most people are going to consume and consume regularly is the actual worst of the worst almost, then in terms of an entire population, if they pick another random drug from the menu, then they're going to be better off and less likely to be addicted and less likely to die. So that should close that one off. But it's not, oh, here's a great drug, try that. That's not what the book says at all. It's very factual. It provides the raw data and information on the drug, the dose, the duration, the onset time, any contraindications, any combinations which should be definitely avoided, and then what it's actually like after an hour, after 2 hours, after 3 hours, or the next day. So you can actually look at the experience and could well conclude, "Oh, I don't really think I'll try that after all." You know, it's the truth. You know, and should you be centering the truth? I don't think you should. I mean, that's you know, part of responsibility of being an adult is give me the truth and I will make the decision. Fortunately, we're not providing the truth. We're force feeding alcohol into the entire population and saying everything else is bad, and it's a simple, it's straightforward lie. And people are paying the consequences for it on a massive scale.
True.
Why do you think that is? Is it just prehistoric, like, laws and stuff that have just stayed, or?
I think it's a few factors there. One is, yes, there's tradition. Second is it's the predominance of Western culture enforcing our drug of choice, alcohol, onto all these other parts of the world which didn't use alcohol. They'd use other drugs, plants, plant medicines, and now they can't do that because of the war on drugs being global. And I think the corruption and the corrupt system we live in the West, with politicians being sponsored by distilleries and tobacco manufacturers, and you know, just the way that our society's run with lobbying, and you know, and in recent years, the fear factor of an adverse story on the front page of the Daily Mail. Oh, soft on drugs, you know. Oh my God, we can't be seen as soft on drugs. So they're hard on drugs, and harder, and what happens, it causes more and more misery. So I think there's a combination of factors. One is the corrupt system we're actually experiencing in our lives. Some of it's tradition. But you know, it's definitely not a case of oh, well, let's pick the safest and most enjoyable drugs to actually use as a population.
It's crazy how, like, that system that they've put in place, people believe so much within as well. Like, you'll get someone that will go and get absolutely obliterated drinking alcohol, but they'll never touch a drug in their life, and they're so against that. The system's literally implanted that into their brain.
Propaganda is so powerful. And it's casual propaganda, it's full face, full frontal propaganda. It's just an avalanche of lies, myths, censorship. I mean, a book like that, it's just never been covered in the mainstream media. I mean, it's the distribution of it. I would say millions. Because one of the things I did was, yet never mentioned in the media. One of the things I did was, when it had been published, and I published it deliberately as a book to begin with, because to give it credibility. So it straight away became a bestseller, a proper, well-known book, so credible. At that point, I'd always decided I was going to release it for free as a PDF, because the objective of the book was to save lives, not to make money. So once it got the credibility it needed to carry itself, I approached all the darknet markets, and the darknet is where a lot of people buy drugs from. And they use a sort of, for anyone who's not familiar with the darknet, it's like an eBay. Each market's like an eBay system, where you go onto the market, you can choose your drug, check if the vendor's credible by the feedback, and then buy the drug and it will arrive. So I went to all the darknet markets and basically explained what the Drug Users Bible was. Explained it. Here's a free PDF. Can you provide this to all the drug consumers, everyone who buys a drug on your market? And here's what's in it for you. Your customers will stay alive. And what's in it for the customers? They're going to stay alive. So it's a win-win, and it's free. And they all said yes. So in a very short period of time, I had a bit of help there's a social media platform on the darknet called Dread, and they got behind it as well. So I had a bit of help from Dread, and within no time it was provided globally to people who were buying drugs on the darknet, and that's really how it got as well known as it is today. Wow. Because it's everywhere, and it's free, and it's easy to download, and it's all over the world. But you know, it had to be done like that, because going back to the media have never, mainstream media has never even referenced its existence. It's never been mentioned in a newspaper, never been referred to on television or on radio. And it's, given that it's a harm reduction safety book, and it does demonstrably save lives, unbelievably, it's never been mentioned at all.
So
and
you're
that's
getting
part
censored.
and parcel of propaganda.
I mean, that does make sense. The last time I bought my 10 kilos of cocaine, I do remember the guy who sold it to me. He was sent me the PDF. No, but that is
He's
crazy.
gonna get raided tomorrow, innit?
I'm joking, obviously. But that is, what you've just said there, I was in my head, I was like, that is crazy. So you went to all of these independent vendors of obviously these substances, and you said, this is the PDF, it's free, it'll keep your customers alive, so it'll make you more money, and then for the people that are actually buying it, it'll keep them alive. And all of them accepted it.
Yeah, I mean, I started off by going to Dread's like the Reddit of social media, and there isn't a Facebook or anything like that. It's Dread. So I went to the owner of Dread and said, I'm Dominic Milton Trott. I've got, and they'd heard of the book, obviously, and I said, can you help with this project? Can you provide it for free? And they said, of course we can. Can you help me put pressure on the darknet markets to actually provide it to drug users? So it's no harm to anyone. If someone's buying cocaine or heroin, have this PDF. It can only do good. And they said, yeah, of course we will. So it's there all over Dread. I then approach each market, and you typically they come and they go because they get busted, or they exit scam, or they retire. There's typically half a dozen to a dozen major markets operating across the world. And I basically went to each registered on the market, opened a ticket, can I speak to you, take me to your leader, and then I gave them the explanation. Here's the PDF, you can host it, or you can link to it on this other website, whichever is easiest for you, so long as your customers, the people who are buying drugs, actually get this safety information. And they all said yes. And why wouldn't they?
How long did that take you to do?
It took a surprisingly short period of time. It took about, from first approaching Dread, who were on board within about 3 days, probably about 6 months, because it's sometimes not easy to get to the owner of a market.
Yeah.
You'd register on a market. Imagine you wanted to get to the owner of eBay. How would you do that? Well, given that it's illegal, you'd register on eBay, and then you'd find, is there a way of support ticket if you've got a problem, or the vendor has ripped you off? So then you'd open a ticket and hope you got somebody who was intelligent or incredible or sensible, and say, look, can I contact the owner of this market? This is what's happening. And the way it actually worked out is because Dread had relationships with 2 or 3 of the biggest. Once I got a few of them, I was able to say, look, this market and that market are already doing this, and it's helping their credibility, and it's showing them in a positive, So it became easier as I went along. Within about 6 months, I pretty much got all the major markets.
Wow. That's you know what, this is I'm slowly starting to figure out, this is absolutely not a midlife crisis. This is a side mission that you decide, this is your mission that you wanted to do, and it's incredibly I'm just right now I'm quite shocked at how we're sat here with you, and you've not been on any news channels. I've probably helped save millions and millions of lives. Realistically, that's what you've done. And it just started from you one day just going I don't know what to do, I want to experiment. And then it was obviously 12 years of your life, which is right now I'm thinking about it, it's crazy. So honestly,
I knew it was going to be something completely different, something that was going to be unique and something that was definitely going to help people. And it was, early it was just, well, first of all, I've got to finish it. And that's why I got in the position where I couldn't not finish it. I had to carry on and do the 12 years. But then it was, okay, well, how do I get it into the hands of the people who actually need it? And it's all well and good. It's a book, and it's it's fantastically well. But most drug users don't go and buy books on Amazon or in other online shops or WH Smith or wherever it was. They don't, and it's then a question of, well, okay, I'll give it out on the internet, and I think it had 20,000 downloads on the first 2 days from Reddit alone. And that sort of market tested it as a download, and that's when I thought, well, okay, well, the next logical step is the darknet equivalent of Reddit, which is Dread, and actually at the point of drug acquisition, just like a doctor. If you go to the doctor, they're going to provide you with harm reduction information for your whatever drug they're prescribing. So if I could get the darknet markets to do it and the vendors on there, then it's actually putting it in front of the eyeballs, right at the point where the drug user is getting the drugs, and that can only be good. And the surprise was how easy it was to actually persuade the markets to actually take this on, because I thought, the way the media present the darknet and markets, the common assumption is, oh, they're all bad guys and they're all gangsters, and well, that's just not true. They're just selling a commodity, and they're trying to make money, and they're no different to anyone else who's doing that, really. So once I'd open a communication with one of them and explain, it was never like I was talking to sort of somebody who was fundamentally bad. It was just two blokes, saying, look, I've written this, can you do this? This is what it will do, and these other markets are doing this, and they just why not? And they just did it.
One of the things that I heard was that nutmeg can actually kill you, and it's obviously you can buy it at Sainsbury's, and it's
that was one of my, if not the worst experience of my life, because it's obviously it's a common spice, and I used to have it on the custard tarts, which I was partial to when I was young, and then I read somewhere that you can get high on it. Wow, great! And I was 20. This was before I started writing the book, so I was 22, and I was married. I said, okay, I'm going to make, to the wife, I'm going to make nutmeg tea. So I made nutmeg tea, 1.5 nutmegs, and it was a Friday. Just started going out, and I drank it about 7:30, and I got to about 9:30, and nothing had happened, and I thought, well, that's a bummer. It's just obviously a myth. So I go to bed. And then I woke up about 2:30 in the morning, and my head was spinning, and everything was sort of bright, and my mouth was dry, and I needed a pee. So I sort of, I'll go to the toilet, and I couldn't stand up, so I collapsed on the floor, and I'm crawling to the toilet. And as I'm putting my hand down on the floor, it's like it's going into glue, and I'm sort of pulling it out, and so I'm hallucinating, and it's dystopian. It's a really bad, it's like it's real. And this is the problem. This is the difference, and it's worth stressing this generally, between a deliriant and a psychedelic. A psychedelic, you always know real, A deliriant, you actually believe in this is real. So I'm in this space, spinning head thing. I can't pee because it sort of constricts your urinary tract. That's one of its effects. So you can't go to the loo. So I crawl back in bed. Next morning, I said earlier that you only have a hangover from alcohol. It's not actually true. Nutmeg gave me a hangover, and I was off work for about 3 or 4 days, really ill. People die from it. and it was just absolutely awful. I recovered in time, and I never had another drug for about 20 years after that.
Jesus.
It was just a terrible experience.
So how much did you take?
I think I had a full nut and half a nut. It wasn't a tremendous amount. And yeah, it's hard to chew a nutmeg. You have to sort of grate it. So I grated it into a tea, stirred it, and just drank it down. It doesn't taste very nice, but it's not particularly nasty either. So I drank that down, and it was just dystopian, very, very unpleasant. And that's the nature of a delirium. Being delirious is a sort of state between life and death, really.
Yeah.
And to be delirious is not where you want to be. And so many people do this. They'll, you'll get some irresponsible newspaper say they took nutmeg to get high. It's not being high; it's being delirious. It's not somewhere you want to be. And I think the words I use in the book are something like, it's like gambling your life on a roulette wheel to win a prize you actually don't want to, for a prize you don't want to have.
Yeah.
So,
I bet that's I bet that's page 1. You didn't even have to do anything. You just put nutmeg. Do not try.
I've got it, and I've got deliriants in general, because there's another one called datura, which is a seed that people consume. And I'd had the nutmeg experience, and I knew I had to have datura for completeness. So I'm stuck in this sort of, what am I going to do? I've got to have datura, because I've got to have had all the drugs. And it was one of the last ones I did. So I'd read the dose is sort of very vague. It's very difficult to pin down how many seeds do you have.
It's probably because not many people have survived.
Well, this is it. It kills people, and so I'm sort of there thinking. And then I sort of read more, researched more, and I came to understand that one seed can be 7 times more powerful than the next seed. Right. So straight away. And the dose people have usually half a dozen or 10 seeds or something. So you could die. You'd have really, really, really strong seeds, or you could be. What I did was I bought some datura seeds. I'm looking at them. How many can I have? So, well, I know it's a cop out. So I've picked the juiciest seed I can find, the biggest, juiciest seed, and I'll just have one to see what happens. So I had this one seed, chewed it, and I didn't feel like anything was happening. So after a couple of hours, I went for a swim. I live around the corner from a swimming pool, and I just remember I realised I was under the effect of something when I was swimming along, thinking, "Oh, this water sound feels so magnificent. This is the nicest feeling I've ever had in my life." And I'm swimming along, and I'm thinking, "What's going on?" So I get out, and I'm walking back, and then I suddenly realise that something's not right here. And what's not right is that I'm seeing things, and the sound from what I'm seeing arrives into my brain from my ear a split second after I've seen it. So it's sort of diffracted my sensory organs so that they're no longer in sync. I'm seeing everything, I'm hearing everything, I'm smelling everything, but the signals aren't hitting me, my consciousness, at the same time. So I'm seeing a bird flutter, and then I'll hear the wings flutter a split second after. And it's dark because it's evening now, and I'm stood there thinking, this is so weird. And what I'm sort of realising from that, or I think I'm realising, is that when people have datura seeds, or indeed nutmeg, the sensory organs start to become separate entities. The signals from them separate, and when they come back after a big enough gap, they get put together in the wrong order or in the wrong way, and you're living a totally different reality to the one that you're really in. And this is how people end up putting their head in gas ovens, thinking it's a time tunnel, or burrowing the worms out of their arm with a knife, because they're actually not putting the coherent, correct reality together because the sensory organs have been separated, put together in the wrong manner, and that's what I deduced from that. And when I got back, and I had the most weird dreams, and some really strange dreams, and I woke up completely normal. So what I learned from that was, thank God I didn't have more than one seed. This seems to be how deliriums actually work, and thirdly, never have a delirium, because you're actually gambling your life on something you're never going to enjoy. Because I didn't enjoy it. I was scared.
Nutmeg you can just buy. Is there any warning or anything?
No warning. It's just sold
Like
in
any
little
age?
bottles. Nothing at all to
Seems
warn
mental,
you.
right?
Yeah, so if a child gets hold of a nutmeg, because obviously as a child, you
can just
don't
eat it,
really
yeah.
have a brain.
No.
You could just get as a child, nutmeg, just
Seems
down and
mental
dead.
to me.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That
Yeah.
is crazy. Like,
Yeah.
so we've got alcohol. We've got marijuana, which is incredibly regulated, which nowhere near as dangerous as nutmeg that you can just buy at Sainsbury's, and you can
Nutmeg is. I mean, what saves people from nutmeg is ignorance of knowing that it's actually available. Because every time I've seen it described in the newspapers, it's get high or have a hallucination, and that's not what it does. It doesn't provide a high. It's not an hallucination in the sense of a psychedelic. It's delirium, and delirium is absolutely terrible experience.
Yeah, no.
What was your experience like with DMT? I've seen a lot of people talk about it and stuff. Say you have to maybe be past a certain age to do it when you feel ready for it.
I think that applies to all drugs, but I mean, DMT is there's sort of three versions of it really. One is the raw DMT, which you typically vape, and that's a bit like Salvia divinorum, which you've probably heard of as well. And it's a very quick, chaotic experience where you're suddenly in this sort of realm that is just totally different. You think, where am I? There's something called changa, which is if you mix the DMT with an MAOI, which is a plant which I mean, if you just smoke DMT or eat it will have no effect because your body breaks it down. But if you mix it with certain plants and smoke it, it bypasses that sort of breakdown mechanism, and you'll have typically a 15-20 minute experience, which is more navigable. And I much prefer it because, and you know what's going on, and it's just so weird and strange. It's also fun. And then there's the oral eating it, and that's where it's mixed typically by a shaman with these roots, which are MAOI inhibitors, which make it active through. It doesn't break it down in your gut. So then you have a 4 or 5 hour experience, which is even more navigable. You're in more control of it. And I found with that, and that was the best of them, that I could I was aware that I was under the influence of ayahuasca. I knew what was happening, and I could sort of tune into different things and examine them and have a sort of psychedelic experience based upon them. And then when I'd done that, I'd sort of come out of it again and think, oh wow, what can I close my eyes, find another radio station, go into that. And it was more like tuning into different things over that period of time. And they're all interesting. I didn't find DMT particularly fun, more sort of interested, but very too quick. The others were more interesting, but you could get recreation out of them as well, because you could navigate and get your head around it a bit more whilst you're under the experience, and not feel completely out of the realms of normality.
Some people say they've met figures in their DMT trip that have been in a lot of stories, like the serpent. I think there's a DMT serpent.
Yeah.
There's quite like a welcoming presence, I think, that guides you through it.
You can feel, I mean, again, I got more out of the ayahuasca because just my personality. I could feel a presence there. I mean, there's two drugs that are worth mentioning there. One is the ayahuasca with the DMT, where it felt a benign presence. Because every time I went into a different sort of tune, if you like, a different station, I did so through the sort of lens of love, and a benign, this is nice, and I want to bestow love on you, and really, really positive. Whereas with another, again, I wouldn't necessarily call this psychedelic, more of a delirium. It was Salvia divinorum, which is chewed in Mexico, where it comes from, and it's so much milder. But when we had this drug in the West, and there was a craze on this in about 2010, 2014, in that sort of era in the United States and in the UK. What happened is they derived Salvinorum A, which is the active molecule, out of Salvia divinorum. They'd spray it onto this plant matter and smoke it. And so you'd smoke this stuff and you'd have, 20, 50 times the strength of what the natives had it in. And you'd be catapulted into this sort of inferno, into this abyss where everything was sort of, for me, it was all sort of ricocheted. I'd see that table and there'd be 20, 30 versions of the table going back into three dimensions.
So kind of like a kaleidoscope.
Yeah, only the sort of vibe wasn't benign; it was hostile. And you could feel your sort of like your soul being sucked out of your head. This is why people fall over, because you're sort of suddenly overwhelmed by this thing. You feel like you're being sucked into some abyss. Everything's, and yet it's this hostile, and you're sort of almost begging for your life. I'm sort of there thinking, I'll never do this again. Let me live. I don't want to leave. Seriously. And that was one of the most traumatic experiences I actually had.
Oh.
And there used to be a craze where you'd have kids doing this and videoing themselves and uploading the videos to YouTube. And I think over the last few years, YouTube's removed all these things. Yeah. But there was a period of time where there were hundreds of these videos of people doing Salvia divinorum on the phones and uploading it to YouTube. And it was just mental, and nobody was having a good time.
No.
Within these type of drugs, there's like, I think, I don't know if it's a myth, this could be a myth buster, but someone had a story where they like lived like a whole nother life, and they came back out of the trip and they literally felt like they'd spent 80 plus years in a life. They had a full family and things like that. Okay. Is that a myth buster?
That's I mean, I can't say, people have different experiences. Yeah. I've never had anything like that. You do lose track of time with some of the psychedelics. That you feel like you've been gone for 2 and 3 minutes, and it can be a lot longer than that. Not really a lifetime for me, but I used to say what space they were in when they were entering the trip in the first place.
Yeah, I don't know where I heard that story. Have you heard that?
Yeah, it's on Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah, Joe Rogan.
Yeah, some guy pretty much apparently did salvia, spent 7 years in this trip, and then woke up and was just like, what the fuck? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I had it 3 times, and each time I thought, I can control this. The first time I had it, I got it from a head shop in Manchester in near Piccadilly Gardens, and I thought I was buying spice, right? So I thought I was going to smoke this stuff and sort of chill. So I went out into the garden. It was legal, by the way. So I went in the garden and I smoked this out of a bong, and I thought I'll just go back to my computer now. And I stepped into the kitchen, and it was sort of like Kansas was going bye-bye, and I'm thinking, and I stopped immediately. What's happening? And before I knew it, I was on my hands and knees crawling. What's happening? I realised that this wasn't spice. So I'm trying to get to my computer on my hands and knees, and crawling up onto the chair to try and type into Google Salvia divinorum to find out what it was. And I sort of got up, and as soon as I opened the browser, I knew I wasn't getting any further because the browser was there. Then there was another browser behind. There were 1,000 browsers laid back, so it was like a 3D browser. and then that's the bit when at that point I was being sucked into this abyss by this hostile, sort of unbenign presence that was threatening, and who knows what was going to happen to me. So that happened, and when I came round, luckily it lost 5 minutes, doesn't it? So I came round thinking, oh my God, and over the fullness of time, and I was writing the book, and I thought, that's because I didn't know it was coming. So I now know what it does. I'll do the sort of in a closed bedroom in the dark, and I'll just get my head around it, and I'll know what it is, and I'm sort of in control of this thing. And of course, no. And I sort of somehow, and I'd locked myself in because I thought, well, I'm going to fall down the stairs. So I break out of the bedroom, come into the hallway, and I'm looking up the stairs, and instead of just one layer of stairs, because I live in a 3-bedroom house, there's 20 floors going up there.
Oh God!
Then I'm thinking, I've come back into the. I've been in the multiverse. I've come back in the wrong multiverse. So then I run downstairs. I ring the wife. Hello. What have you done now? And I'm thinking, oh, nothing. I'm thinking, thank God, so I'm still married. And the last time I did it, I had somebody to do it with me, thinking, okay, well, this time it'll be fine. No, it wasn't. So it's not one that you can actually get around. You're just going to be catapulted into this hellscape. And so, the end result is the final verdict is don't do Salvia Divinorum ever, because you are not going to have a good time.
It sounds like quite a scary experience. Was there ever a point in the book, like you were halfway through, you had one of these experiences and went, I can't finish this?
Not really. I mean, no, because I somebody once said, well, it's because you're an arrogant prick. Because I always felt I could navigate it. Well, if I do this, other people, I'll be perfectly all right. I know what I'm doing. So which does the sort of side, the byproduct of that is when I am bitten, it comes as a bit of a surprise, bit of a shock. So no, I never thought of. I just thought I'd made a mistake. I've had too much, and I will make damn sure that I don't have too much again, and I'll tweak my sort of generic instructions at the front so that it sort of warns people a bit more about complacency, because it's always complacency. It was always, I've done 100 non-drugs, I'll be perfectly all right. I know what I'm Dominic Milton Trott, I know what I'm doing with drugs. Well, you never ever do.
Yeah,
you never do.
And so, do you reckon that is? I mean, what I wanted to know is obviously people who are just starting to experiment that might come across your book. What do you reckon is one thing that is in that book that you'd want them to know before obviously they embark on this journey?
If you have decided you're going to take drugs, just simply know what you're doing. Know the drug. Know what the safety parameters are. Know what it's going to be like. Why you're having it. And research as much as you possibly can, so that you're well aware of the risk you're taking, and you can decide at that point, when you do know all that, is it a risk you personally want to take? You can mitigate your risk as much as you want, and reach a sort of, well, if I have this much, but do you want to take that risk? That's a choice for an adult to take. And it's a personal choice, but have all the information so that you're making that choice armed with the real facts about the drug in question before you do it, and you're never ever forced to do it. And the last part of it is, and always remember that you can take more, but you can't untake what you've already taken. Yeah,
I feel like that's like a pretty, that's a pretty big thing, and that was the most well-known thing. When people speak about it, you can always do more, but you can never do less.
You can never do less than you've already taken, and if people just remember that. But there's, this is why at the front there's a sort of You know, there's a lot. It's 638 pages, so there's a lot of information. There's a lot of information on some of the most common drugs. But at the front, there's a really short section called the 10 Commandments of Safer Drug Use. So if you don't like reading and you read nothing else, just read these 10 Commandments and follow them religiously, because they will help guide you and mitigate risk to a significant degree.
What are these 10 Commandments, if you would like to?
Well, they start off with research the drug in question. You know, in fact, I did a little 3-minute video on it, which has been banned. You know, it's just totally ridiculous. You know, know the dose. Don't take a drug if you're not feeling well. You know, if you're not in a good space mentally, don't take a drug, even if it's a psychedelic. Always test the drug, and allergy test it before you take it. Have a tiny little bit on your tongue. See if you know. So they're all simple little things that you can actually do. Weigh the drug. Don't think, oh, that looks about right, I'll have that. Well, it doesn't work like that. You know, weigh it. You can get a set of scales for 20 quid, which are perfectly adequate. So know what you're having. So there's only 10 of them, and you just read through it. And I do that. I do it now. Not that I take drugs now, but when I do take drugs, usually when I'm on holiday, or I go to Amsterdam quite a lot, I will still follow my 10 Commandments because it's a way of preventing complacency.
Yeah.
How do you quickly test a drug when you're, like, let's say, on a holiday?
You can go into a smart shop. If you're in, say, Amsterdam, and buy a drug testing kit, or you can take drug testing kits with you, or
And
fentanyl
does it
strips.
have to be specific to the drug, obviously. So.
Yeah, they tend to be specific
okay.
to the drug, or you know, the common one is because fentanyl's in the drug ecosystem. Is to use first and foremost a fentanyl testing strip. But there's places you can actually send the drug anonymously, and they'll test it for you. Or in certain parts of the world, you can take the drug in. You know, we mentioned Amsterdam. There's 2 places you can just walk in with your drug, and they'll test it for you.
Festivals.
Festivals, there's testing places, and they'll test it for you. So you know, or if you're going, you know, you are going to a festival, test it before you go. Send it to, if you're in the UK, send it to Edinos. There's an NHS place in Wales that you can anonymously send your drug to. Get a code off the website, write it on the drug, and then send it off, and they'll post it under that unique code so you can see what your drug is.
Oh wow.
That's
And
free.
then they send it back to you.
And they don't send anything back to you. Just put a little bit of the drug into a packet, put the unique number that you've generated on the website on the packet, and then in a week or however long it takes them, you will go back on the website and put, there's your code, there's the drug, there's the actually what's in your drug. And
It's good.
wow.
It's good that that's in place. At least that's the least, I guess, our
it's vital.
government system.
It's
could do.
vital.
Have you ever been to Glastonbury?
No, I've
Really?
I went to V99. You know what V was before you were born, probably. The big festival. There was Glastonbury, and there was these V festivals in near Stafford. There was one in near Leeds, and you'd have a weekend, and then on the Saturday, all the bands would play in Staffordshire, I think it was, and on the Sunday the same. They'd swap over, you know. So they'd have this sort of dual festival going on. So I've been there, but I mean, I came a cropper at one of them. I think it was V actually, because in those days, in the 90s, anything legal didn't work. So I went to this festival, and there was these drugs for sale, and it was called Blitz or Blast or something like that. So I thought, that sounds okay, but it's not going to work. So I bought it, and I had it. And it worked. And then that's when it suddenly hit me that, you know, these days, as opposed to the 80s, where anything that you could buy legally didn't work, when you got to the late 90s and the 21st century, legal highs actually did work. They were research chemicals. So the actual scene radically changed. It's just like the weed scene. When I was a kid, all you could get was hash. You can get bud anywhere. You know, you'd go out and you wanted cannabis, you'd have to get hash because that was what was on sale. Nowadays, you go and get it. You get bud, don't you? You have to actually go out and try and get hash to get hash. So over the years, I've seen some pretty dramatic changes, and that was one that nearly got. So fortunately, it was a bit of psychedelic, so I survived it. But I just assumed that it wouldn't work because when I was young, legal highs didn't actually work.
Okay, I see.
No.
Dominic, this has been a very eye-opening episode, to be honest with you. Obviously, hopefully, guys, if you're ever thinking of experimenting or doing whatnot, please do so safely. This is obviously not promoting the use of drugs, but it's promoting the use of the safe use of drugs. So it's harm reduction. YouTube, TikTok,
We do have
harm reduction.
Yeah,
We do have a
harm
young
reduction.
demographic as well,
Yeah.
so it is likely to resonate
So
with these
this
guys.
is the book. Please, if you haven't done so, do go and read it. Have a look at it yourself. Dominic has very kindly brought us a copy of it. So if we're all right to keep this,
absolutely.
I
And
would.
and a word for
Yeah.
YouTube,
Yeah.
TikTok, and all of the social media platforms.
Mhm.
You guys have really got to understand the difference between promoting drug use and promoting harm reduction. They're absolutely different subjects. One obviously promotes the use of drugs, which comes with risk. The other saves people's lives. So please stop banning videos and content that is actually intended to save people from themselves, because indirectly at least it is actually killing people. So seriously, stop banning this sort of content. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful message. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
We'll see
guys.
you in the next one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.